Hello, I'm Sean Reeves. Welcome to our How to Sell Your Business video, a part of the Business Moreton Bay Region Business Video Series. Hi, I'm Sean Reeves, Director of SRJ Walker Wayland. We're business advisors, tax agents, accountants, auditors, and many more things business related. And I'm joined here by Tony Brown today to talk to you about how you might go about selling your business. Tony, thanks for joining us. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Cheers, Sean. I'm Tony Brown, Director of Divest, Merge, Acquire. We help people buy and sell businesses throughout Australia.
Okay, so I mean that's it in a nutshell, but can you tell us just a little bit more about the extent of what you do, how you might go about it, and the experience you've had in transactions?
Sure. So we've been working in this industry for well over 20 years. We've sold hundreds of businesses for people and helped many others acquire businesses, either local or international buyers.
Okay, so a fair bit of experience to draw upon in our conversation today, which is fantastic. So you say you've had plenty of experience with people buying and selling businesses. Is it a simple thing, this buying or selling? Is it just one person passing ownership to another for a price, or what does it look like?
Just to show you how complicated it could be, we've had business owners after a sale say, I'd rather sell 100 more properties than one more business, because it can be complicated. So there are many, many more moving parts in a business.
Okay.
But a lot of business owners think it's binary and they're just going to sell or not sell. Now, when you're selling a business, you're normally withdrawing labour and capital, and they both don't have to exit at the same time.
Okay.
And so that's where some flexibility comes in. Rather than black or white, there's a lot of grey in between, and that's ultimately where we can make a lot of value for the business owner who could be outgoing.
Okay. So can you be a little bit more specific for me, Tony, in relation to if the capital doesn't have to come out at the same time as the labour, what sort of arrangement are we talking about there? How do things actually look? Are there different examples of this?
Yep, so let's say somebody wants to, a business owner might want to exit retirement, for example, is a pretty common one, after a number of years. And they might be saying, look, I'm happy to, I don't have any other plans, I'm happy to work in the business afterwards for a period of time. Now that massively de-risks the business opportunity for a new owner coming in, to know that somebody's going to have their back and be around to help with changing over, with migration, and bedding in the new owners into a business which is like going into a set of well-worn shoes. You want to make sure that you don't upset staff, customers, suppliers, so you really want to make sure that you've got business as usual, and the more helping hand that you can have, the safer it is for a new owner, and the more ultimately they'll pay for a business. So one of the ways is to retain some interest in the business by way of a consulting agreement. Another one is to have an incentive to keep the performance of the business continuing afterwards, and that could be what people call earnouts, which is creating a financial incentive, an extra payment or a bonus payment to the selling owner, the outgoing owner, after maybe a year or so after completion. But in another one, a business owner could keep a minority share of the business for a period of time, basically for free, because many people will pay as much for 80% of a business as they would for 100 if the owner was going to keep the other 20 for, say, 3 years.
Okay.
So you can actually keep some of your share in your business and still have an influence, and ultimately get a lot more overall money because you're getting an extra payment.
Okay, very interesting. Now, what you're heading to there is that selling is a process where you're looking effectively for as close to a win-win as you can get. A win for the buyer and a win for the seller. And what is a win-win, you're saying, is different in every different situation depending on the business and the people involved.
Yep,
right?
That's true. And the owner might be looking to he might be looking to sell down and bring in a new investor to take the business forward, which could be another set of circumstances. So not everyone might be exiting. They might be taking some money off the table and be prepared to still bat on, but as a minority owner with with a new business owner taking the business and growing it. So
Okay.
there's a lot of ways of doing things. There's various things called management buy-ins, management buyouts, where the staff can be funded to help buy into the business. So the staff could actually end up owning the business, which is another retirement
Okay.
way for owners. So there's a lot of ways of achieving owners exiting, depending on what they're prepared to do. And in some cases, they're selling to family members. There's a whole process around that in terms of succession planning, exit planning. There's whole industries that do just those things.
Okay. Wow, I'm sort of blown away a bit by that, and how we're going to pull this into 20 minutes. But I should point out to the
We
audience...
don't need to talk about all those here, Sean.
No. And I should point out to the audience that we have put together a fairly comprehensive PowerPoint presentation on a lot of these concepts that we're talking about. So if we're glossing over these and you're going, look, stop, I want to know more about that, obviously feel free to look in the resources section of the Business Moreton Bay Region site and hunt down that How to Sell and Value a Business PowerPoint presentation. Now, I've decided to look at some form of business sale. I don't necessarily know what it is yet. And I know that when I've spoken to my clients about this, I've said, expect that it's going to be a roller coaster ride, and you'll go through a roller coaster of emotions. Sometimes when things are rocketing along your way and it's a bit of a thrilling ride, and then other instances where it sort of takes you back and gives you a bit of a fright, and invariably that's the case. So if we're going to take that roller coaster ride out of it just for the moment, can you tell me, if I'm mad enough to go through this process, what can I expect? What is the process I've got to go through?
Okay, so the first thing is to plan ahead as far as you can. Prepare for this sale in advance, maybe up to 2 years.
Okay.
Having said that, probably 95% of people that we see haven't done that.
Okay.
And in many cases, we can point out some things that if they had prepared, they could save or make a lot more money by doing them.
Okay, so that I'm guessing is what you're calling sale readiness?
Yeah, sale preparation, sale readiness.
Okay.
Exactly.
And it sounds pretty important, so we might put that aside for a moment and come back to it a little bit later, just to open up that can of worms a little bit more. So let's assume I've done the right thing and I've spoken to the right people 2 years out, and my business is sale ready.
Yeah.
What next?
Okay, so the next thing is to find a suitable professional to help you. Your accountant is always a very good starting point, because most accountants are working with others selling or buying businesses all the time, so they'll know who the experts are to talk to if you need one to help you sell a business. And one of the first things that we will do in that situation is to understand the needs and motivations of the owners. So we establish, yes, this is the right thing to do, we're here to help. Then there's preparation. So document preparation is going to be going through not just the financials. A lot of people think it's just about the financial aspects in the business, but we need to put together a proper sale document. So when you're going to buy a house, 90% of what you're going to buy, you see when you walk through.
Yeah.
And what you can't see, you get a building inspection and pest inspection and a lawyer to check out. When you go to buy a business, it's the opposite. You could walk through somebody's premises. You don't know whether there's one office or 10, whether it's making money or losing, whether it has one customer or 1,000 customers.
Okay.
So we have to prepare a document called an information memorandum, and it's the virtual walkthrough of the business. And it sets out many more things than just the financials.
Okay.
Probably they might be 2 pages out of about a 30 or 40 page document.
Okay. So I've got my IM,
Yes.
my information memorandum.
Exactly.
What do I do with that?
So the next thing is to determine, and in fact it's done in parallel with that, because part of the IM focus is the kind of buyers that are most likely to be the best ones for this business.
Okay.
And they're the target buyers. So you establish who the target market is, and that's the people, as we've referred to in another video, the people who are going to pay the most are the people who it's worth the most to, has the most to gain by buying it, and the least to risk. It's not just about money. In fact, most owners want a far better outcome than just the highest price.
Yeah.
But you do definitely want people who will see the highest value in the business. and they are people who will understand it. So we're writing the information memorandum for them.
Okay.
So we do need to understand who's going to buy this, who could buy this business.
Okay.
And they might be in 3 or 4 different categories, but we can generally determine the buyers, and then we know who we're going to put the business in front of.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So we've found. Let's assume we've gone through that process now, and we've found someone that wants to talk to us, and we want to talk to.
Yep.
Do we pull out a contract and sign it, or is there a bit to be done before that?
There's a few quick steps in between.
Okay.
And there's usually a bit of a dance where somebody will say, well, we usually have set an asking price, but in some cases we'll go expression of interest if there's a lot of intellectual property and it's hard to determine the true value based on maybe some projected cash flows.
Okay.
So either way, we have price guidance, and the new owners or the people who are intending to buy, or bidders, as sometimes they're called, will make offers for the business. So there's usually offers, same sort of thing that you'd be negotiating if you're buying a house, but it can be a lot more complicated because there's a lot more moving parts, as we said, in a business. You know, you might have 3 or 4 things that you can negotiate on a house. There could be well over 100 factors to take into account when you are assessing a business.
Okay.
So there's quite often an offer document or a term sheet or a heads of agreement that sets out some what we'll call key terms, which will be price, will be other conditions that relate to the business.
Okay. And I understand that this process isn't necessarily just a formula of one thing after another, because you know the negotiation, the term sheet, the heads of agreement, a contract pops in there somewhere, and those things don't necessarily happen in the same order every time.
No, quite often on a fairly complicated business, the term sheet or an offer document is the first thing, and then there's a due diligence process where the buyers pay or do themselves different things to check the business out, like an audit
Yep.
of the business. They
Yep.
might hire their accountant and their lawyers and some other people to do specific things. Now, in complicated businesses, that normally happens before the contract is signed, because you can't, in theory, finish the contract off with some, you know, that could be 500 pages long until you have done your due diligence. But in most small businesses, let's say 95% of businesses, the contract may be relatively simple, using a government form or a REIQ kind of form, and that could be signed at the point where someone has agreed to buy, and then all the rest of the process, like due diligence, happens under contract. So there's cover or protection, and then when all those conditions like due diligence, maybe finance, are met, then it just is a simple process to complete. So we don't need to, most businesses won't have the complication of an extended due diligence that could take months.
Okay, but some might.
Some can, some can. But that's our world,
Yeah.
but that is not 95% of businesses, where it might only be a week or half a day on site looking at the books. Could be as light as that.
Okay. So we've gone through that process of finding a buyer, doing the dance, the negotiation.
Yep.
Due diligence has been sorted, the term sheet's in and around there somewhere. Everybody's happy, we've got to settlement. Is that it from me, or are there other things we've got to consider?
As in for you as a seller?
Well, just in the sale process generally.
We call this mergers and acquisitions for a reason. When businesses are being bought by other business owners, they're merging businesses quite often.
Yeah.
When new owners are coming in, there's a lot of what we'll call handover and integration, whereby if it's 2 businesses, then they have to be integrated somehow normally, even in the admin area. But just it's purely on handover, the staff need to be assured that they've got jobs, if that's the case, which is 99.99% of the time.
Yep.
In fact, staff quite often are worried about keeping their jobs with the new owners. The new owners are more worried about losing the staff.
Okay.
So almost, I haven't seen it, I can't remember whenever the staff weren't coming across with the business, ever. So one of the things is, and it's the role of the outgoing owner as well as the incoming, to make sure that everyone's getting the right information and that they understand that where their role is and that they're secure in their jobs. The customers may need assurance too. So there's a handover process.
Okay, okay. And is if I've sold my business, am I away scot-free without a worry in the world, or are there things that are still linking me to that business sale for some time?
You've made representations about the business in the contract or in negotiations or in the due diligence process, and you have to warrant those things.
Okay.
So you are certainly what we'll call on the hook for a period of time, so that if anything that you said turns out not to be right, like a contract retention, but it's actually just a warranty, then in theory you could be liable to hand back some or all of the money.
Okay.
Worst case. So you do have to make sure you don't act dishonestly when you're representing yourself to sell a business.
Okay. Okay. Look out for the warranties in the contract, and make sure you've got a really good legal professional on your side.
You do need a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, people have tried to do these business transactions without a lawyer, and it's very, very risky.
Okay.
You always need a lawyer.
So, earlier we spoke about this sale readiness thing. What are the headline things that I need to be considering when I'm getting my business sale ready?
So there's two aspects of being ready. One is the business and one is the owner.
Sure. Okay.
So, you know, many people have built a business around themselves and they just see the two as one.
Yeah.
They have to think of the business and themselves as two different entities, really. And what they're looking for in terms of a sale is what's best for the business.
Yeah.
But they also need to know that they've got themselves in the right space, the right time. You know, it's the right time for them. They understand what they're going to be doing afterwards, how they can help that business and the new owner. You have to have a go-to. The worst thing you can do is take a big hole out of your life and expect to be stable. You know, you have to. If you've got a go-to to be helping others or to be involved with this business or to travel when we can, or other things, you'd have to have an idea of what you're wanting to do. So you need to be selling for the right reasons. You might be ill and just say, I just need to sell because I need to look up, or you have to look after somebody or something.
Yeah.
So when you can no longer dedicate all the time that you want to the business, then you realise that you get to retirement age, you can become the handbrake in your own business and not approve and not allow growth opportunities because you're trying to take eggs out of that basket, not put more in. So all these reasons are why you need to make sure this is my time to find a new owner for the business.
Okay. Okay. So that's me, right?
Yeah.
What about the business? How do I optimise my financial exit, the withdrawal of my capital from the business?
Many ways, Sean, many ways. So one of the first things that we see in a business, and this is that preparation, sometimes it's 2 years out. You really do need to look and say, from a corporate perspective, how have I run this business? And let's talk financial for a second. The balance sheet in a business. Whenever you get financial statements, there's a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet. Now, the balance sheet has in it your assets and your liabilities. Now, the assets become the waistline of the business. And over time, that tends to spread. So the debtors, the trade debtors, if there are any in a business, may grow because people aren't so diligent collecting money. Their customers become their friends and they're a little bit slack with that. They might be carrying more stock. We've had clients that have used their stock as their bank account. So they just carry more stock because they know they can buy it cheaply now. And so when you go to value a business, you're looking at the business in total, and it's based on the profit as a multiple of the profit. Now, we used an example in a different video where we said 4 times $1 million, the business is worth $4 million. It'd be nice if everyone's business is worth $4 million, but let's say it is. Then if you've got your debtors consuming $1 million of that, and your stock's consuming $1 million of it, that's $2 million tied up in those assets. So to corporatise the business, you look and say, do my debtors need to be that tied to that fat or that large? Can I rein them in without jeopardising the value of without jeopardising the profit of the business?
Okay.
Because the profit is where the value is going to be. If you can cut your stocks down, if you can shrink your balance sheet down, the business is still going to be worth the same $4 million in our example, but you'll have more cash off the table in your pocket and the business is still worth the same amount.
Okay, so I'm getting an idea there, Tony, that we've got a couple of buzzwords that we can throw out there, or property's all about location, location, location. I'll say businesses are all about lean, leveraged and lucrative, perhaps.
It's pretty clever.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That was just off the top of my head. But lean being very efficient,
Yep.
leveraged being not totally reliant on the person,
Yep.
because that decreases the risk, and lucrative because, you know, it
Profit.
makes more money, it's worth more. So just, and you mentioned that we have done a video on how to value your business, and I'll refer people to have a look for that one for some more detail as to how we might value a business. But could you tell me in 25 words or less, or maybe a couple more, what are the key drivers of value?
Profit, profit, profit.
Okay.
So multiple of your profit is how people will assess the value of the cash flow of the business. And so there's a lot of people that have not realised that it's all about profit. It's all about the profit of the business to determine the overall value of the cash flow, which is the value of a business.
Sure.
In terms of your business and mine. If yours is making $1 and mine's making $100, which one's worth more? It's clear that profit is the main driver. So you need to run your business to make the best profit it can make.
Which is the lucrative bit.
Exactly right.
Yep, yep.
Yep. And then make sure that the value of that business is not left on the table in unnecessary surplus excess assets.
Okay.
And that's the lean part.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any pitfalls in selling a business? Are there any traps? Can I fall into any holes?
Well, you could get the wrong advisors for a start. You could not understand the value. You could overprice it or underprice it. And you could leave money on the table, or you could have a business that never sells.
Okay.
There's many, many ways. And there's, you know, many people have a great year and say, great, it's a good time to go to the market. And that was one out of the bag. It wasn't a maintainable level.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're in the market, and the profit for the next year hasn't been repeated.
Yeah,
so
okay.
you really want to make sure that you've got a good year coming.
Okay. And I guess in this sale process that we've spoken about, there's negotiation, due diligence. We're opening up the innermost secrets of our business here. So I guess it's a pitfall here that we've got to be careful what we say and to whom we say it.
Yeah, confidentiality is king.
Okay.
Everything, ideally people want one person to see their business and they buy it. But you know, that's not the way it can possibly be. And in some ways you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince.
Okay.
You do have to be comfortable that you are able to share a certain amount of information, not necessarily commercially sensitive, but enough information for people to understand your business and understand the value in it, and to find that it's a business they want to acquire. So we do have to share a certain amount of information in stages and in a very controlled way.
Okay, so again, good advisors and good legal representation, I'm guessing.
A very tight process.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so in order to wrap this up, selling a business, I've decided to sell. You've taken me through the process. You've told me about making sure I'm sale ready. So if I've decided to sell, I might have to step back in time a couple of years and make sure that my business is sale ready. And then from there, make sure I'm optimising value and having the right process in place with the right documentation and the right protections.
Yeah.
So if this is on my radar at all, you're telling me it should be on a medium-term radar, and I should be having these thoughts perhaps 3 or 4 years out from having a look at actually signing it on the dotted line, which is, I'm guessing, what not a lot of people do.
I think if you're getting your financial statements done every year, then it's a good time to have a discussion with your accountant and say, what would my business be worth if I had to sell it today? Just so that you always have an understanding. And then you also, most importantly out of that exercise, understand what the value drivers are, what does drive the profit of the business, and then you do act a little bit more in a corporate way. So you make sure your balance sheet, you have that discussion, how is my balance sheet?
So you're doing the right thing.
You should be doing it always.
Without knowing it, you're actually getting sale ready.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You're thinking that way. You should be doing that constantly. Because you do have an asset. You think you know what your house is worth, you should have an understanding of what your other substantial asset is worth.
Okay, well, which is a fantastic point to finish on, I think. Let's make sure that we're well across the value in all of the things that we have as assets, and not neglect often what is a most important one just because it's a bit harder than assessing the value of where we go home to of an evening.
Exactly.
So, Tony, a fantastic chat. I've really enjoyed it.
Same here, Sean.
I've learned a couple of things, and I hope the audience of home have got some really solid takeaways from that. Remembering again that we have quite a detailed PowerPoint presentation about all of these concepts and topics that we've discussed. So Tony, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure.
And thank you for joining me today.